Hello, I'm Bob the Bookerer and Happy New Year. I hope everybody is having a great New Year so far. I am recording this just before New Year's because I'm due to be away. But I'm basically just in that period between Christmas and New Year's where I'm just living in jumpers and in a weird state of not really doing much. But all of that has got me partly reflecting on what I want my year of reading to look like. And as I mentioned in the video I put out about wintering and about various other things, many things of that have changed over the year. I think I expected to have a year where I could do some more of the book reading than I did, and had all of these other big plans. And like with any plan, they can go awry. And in many ways, I'm glad that they did, because the pressure that was on me, given by me, was slightly ridiculous to try and finish the Booker project last year. And it's a wild one because I'm so close still. So that is obviously going to be a big part of my reading for the coming year. But I've tried to strip it back because, partly because nobody needs that much stress for their reading, but also there are lots of other things I want to do, and the idea of being so close to the end of the Booker project makes me so excited about what else is possible. So with all of that in mind, I've taken what would normally be my reading to-do list or whatever for the year and sort of knocked it down a few notches. So the Booker project is still on there, as it will be to the day I die. No, until I finish it. And I think I'm still at about 30 books to go. So that is a doable thing within the year. And as a bit of a sort of stretch thing, if I get time, I know after having said not doing anything else, but I think I've realised it's only about 20 odd books for the International Booker shortlists as well. So I'll see how I go on that. No pressure to have that finished this year. It'd be kind of nice to do the double in some ways and have them both done in that sense. But it's all about enjoyment at the end of the day. And that's what slowed it down for this year, because I think I mentioned in the wintering video, there was a point where essentially if I'd wanted to finish the Booker project this year, in 2024, I could have. And the only downside to that, or the main downside really, being that would involve really rushing through those books, reading something like 250 pages of just Booker books per day to meet this target. And all for what? You know, I wouldn't have necessarily remembered the books that well. It would have just been a lot. So I'm going to spread that out. We'll see at what point that will happen in 2025. It may well be that it takes me the whole year. It may be that I end up doing that within the first few months. Who knows? But yeah, I'm kind of keeping that one a bit more relaxed, because that was never meant to be a high stress reading challenge. That was just meant to be to kind of go back and experience all of the old shortlists. So yeah, that's still on the agenda, but slowed down. And the International Booker one is, yeah, again, is like, there is a stretch goal of, if I feel like it. There are plenty of books on those lists that I want to read anyway, so it's in some ways an easy one, and a lot of them are quite short, so in that sense quite an easy one, but we'll see. So that's the first part of it. And then the rest is really just that there are a couple of books that I have been putting off for the longest time, and I'm finally going to try and read them this year. And those are as follows. I realised when I started recording that bit of the video, I didn't have the books next to me, which would have helped. So the 3 books, and this is a critical part of this, I've taken it down from, I think in previous years, there were about 12 books that I was going to try and squeeze in on top of everything, and many of them were quite long, and that became a problem because suddenly amongst the sea of other reading for prizes and the Booker project and everything else, they just naturally kept on being pushed down. But now this is 3 books, and this has taken much more on. I've been talking about reading these books for the longest time, so I should just go and do it. The first being Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And as you can see by the absolute discoloration on this here, I have had this book for a very long time. And it is sort of now at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try and enjoy this. I'm gonna give myself some proper time. It's about 1,000 pages, but I'm gonna sit with it with some proper time let the magic of it roll over me. So yeah, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. One of those books that I've just been putting off for the longest time, but I know I'll love it. That's the thing. The next two are a lot shorter, but are kind of ones that for different reasons I've really wanted to read. The first being Panenka by Rónán Hession. Ghost Mountain was in my favourite books of 2024. Leonard and Hungry Paul was in my favourite backlisted books of 2023. It's probably about time I read his other book in between those two, Panenka. I love his writing from the two books I've read so far, and I see no reason why I wouldn't love this. So very, very excited to read this. And the other being a real classic, and that is Beloved by Toni Morrison, which is one of those books that I kind of can't believe I've not read. I've read maybe two other books by Toni Morrison. I've read Sula and I think one other, and I adored Sula. I thought her writing was phenomenal, and Beloved is, you know, her big book that, you know, won several prizes and has been very much lauded and is sort of seen as a very definitive book in many, many ways. So really excited to finally read this year, and I'm going to try and hold myself to that a little bit better. And in some ways that's easier because I've slimmed down a lot of my other bits of reading, and so it feels like there's space for it this year, and even for, you know, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, for all 1,000 pages of this book to actually fit in this year. I think now feels a bit more possible. And then on top of that, just book prizes, as you may expect, are kind of ones that I'm still following. There are a few where I've taken a bit of the stress out of it to some degree, where prizes that I follow that I really love, like the Wainwright Prize, the last couple of years I've sort of, because of the timing of it, because it's quite close to the Booker, it's quite close to the end of the year, it's always one where the list comes out, I suddenly try and scramble to get everything, and then I find it really difficult, at least for the last few years I found it quite difficult to finish reading them by the time of the winner announcement. And really I'm just taking some pressure off myself for that, of maybe I'll just read what sounds interesting from it for me, which might still be all of them, but with a lot less time pressure, at least. But and without, after having said all of that, a prize I'm sort of adding into this mix. I've taken a couple of others out, or at least reduce the pressure and having to read them. So ones like the Dylan Thomas is one that I really enjoy reading, and I typically end up reading it across the year, but taking out the time pressure to read it in time for the winner announcement. But one I'm wanting to add in is the Climate Fiction Prize. And in many ways, it's quite good because a few of the books on that list, including Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright, obligatory mention of this for every video I make, is on the list. And so there are a few books already, like Orbital by Samantha Harvey, on there that I've already read, and Private Rights by Julia Armfield, and the rest are books that sound fantastic. So I'm really excited to read that list. And that's as well quite a slow burn, as in I think the winner is announced in March. So we have the long list now. There's plenty of time to sit and read the books and kind of get cozy with them. So that's fine. I feel a lot better about that, particularly this beginning part of the year where there aren't as many prizes coming through. Sort of tends to be a bit later where you get a few of the big prizes that come in. So that's where I'm at with my reading plans for this year. I think, like with always, in some ways having no plan is a good plan. I don't have a specific number of books that I want to read by the end of the year. I put an arbitrary one on Goodreads just to have something there, but it's fairly open. I read a fair bit anyway, so it happens. It's not something I have to be strategic about to kind of hit the goal of it. But yeah, I think just going into 2025 with a much calmer approach, hopefully, to a lot of my reading. This last year was an intense one, personally and professionally and in many other ways. And so reading in amongst it was an interesting challenge at times anyway, and the pressure of having to read certain things was not conducive to great reading. And 2025 is one where I really want to, leave that quite open, give myself a lot of spaces. And this is for every other part of my life as well as my reading, but leave lots of spaces to just be able to pick up what I want to have a little bit of mood reading It's not a competition. Reading is not a thing that you have to do certain things of by certain times. I like to do some of those challenges for things because I think it adds a little bit of extra variety sometimes to my reading, particularly with prizes. There's something about being able to pick up books that I wouldn't otherwise have touched. But I think it's been slowly growing into something a little bit more unmanageable, and so I'm stripping that back a little bit. There are some books I want to read. There's the Booker project that I'm hoping to finish off this coming year, and a few other things, and that feels nice. And particularly quite a few bits at the beginning of the year where I can really tuck into some books that have had sat around my house for the longest time and get on with them, including obviously the books I just mentioned now, these lovely little ones. Pardon me. So that's what I'm going to be up to reading wise. I hope you have a really great reading year ahead. Do be kind to yourself with that. I'm going to do a few of the fun things as well to kind of in many ways throw myself off my normal reading in a fun way, such as doing the challenge by Ben Reads Good, and I'll link to his video about it below, because that feels like a fun way of occasionally throwing myself a bone of, okay, why don't we read something different now? We don't have to read another book from the Booker shortlist. You know, we can do something else for a little while here. But yeah, let's take it really easy. Let's have a nice chilled 2025. And I hope your year in general is a really good one. And I hope your reading year is a fantastic one as well. Take care, and thank you all for being around as I do booktube stuff and generally look stressed on camera. Have a fantastic one, and speak to you all soon. Bye bye.